Joseph. From the following story, we can learn how God carries out His plan. Whether we know it or not, He does have a plan and a purpose for each of us. There are certain lessons we must learn in order for us to be the people and tools God needs us to be. He can take the worst possible circumstances and make good come out of them. Also, we should not be bitter because of the things that happen to us. Through love and with faith, we can overcome anything. Israel and his family lived in Canaan, near the city of Hebron, in the land that God had given Israel's father Isaac and his grandfather Abraham. Israel loved all his sons, but Joseph was his favorite. Israel made Joseph a robe of many colors, like the ones worn by the children of nobles. When some of Joseph's brothers saw that Joseph was the favorite son, they were jealous of him and hated him. One night Joseph had a dream and told it to his brothers. "I dreamed we were binding sheaves," that means making bundles of grain, "in the field. My sheaf stood up, and all your sheaves stood and bowed to my sheaf." His brothers became angry and said, "You would rule over us?" After this, they hated Joseph even more. The next night, Joseph had another dream that he told to his brothers. "I dreamed that the sun, the moon, and 11 stars came to me and paid homage to me." Joseph also told his father his dream. His father said, "What is this dream of yours? Do you think I, your mother, and your brothers will bow down to you?" Joseph's brothers hated him even more, but Israel remembered the dream. All of Israel's sons, except Joseph, went out to pasture the sheep. After a while, Israel said to Joseph, "Your brothers are feeding the sheep at Shechem. Go to see how they are doing and bring word back to me." When Joseph arrived in Shechem, his brothers had already moved on. Joseph asked a man if he had seen his brothers. The man said they had gone to 2 wells, so Joseph went after them. When some of his brothers saw him coming, they plotted to murder him and said to each other, "Here comes the dreamer. Let us kill him and throw his body into one of these wells. We will say a wild animal captured him. Then we will see if his dreams come true." Reuben heard the plan and wanted to save Joseph, so he said, "We should not kill him. Let us throw him into one of the dry wells." He planned to come back later to get Joseph out safely. Then Reuben had to leave. When Joseph arrived, the brothers took the robe that his father had made him and threw him into the dry well. Joseph's brothers were preparing to eat when they looked up and saw a group of Ishmaelites on their way to Egypt with camels that were loaded down with goods for trading. Judah had an idea and said, "There is no profit in murdering our brother and getting his blood on our hands. Let us sell him to the Ishmaelites." So they pulled Joseph up out of the well and sold him. When Reuben went back to the well to rescue Joseph, he was very sad to discover that Joseph was gone. Joseph's brothers put goat's blood on Joseph's coat and sent it to their father with a message, "Does not this coat belong to Joseph?" Israel examined the coat and cried, "Yes, it is the coat of my son. Some wild beast has killed him." Israel was devastated and mourned for his son for many days. His other children tried to comfort him, but Israel could not be comforted. He cried for a very long time over the loss of Joseph. Unknown to Israel, his son Joseph was taken to Egypt according to God's plan, and would eventually become a great man. He was sold to Potiphar, the commander of the guard, an officer of Pharaoh. God was with Joseph, and Joseph was appointed the steward of Potiphar's household. As the steward, he was in charge of the whole estate and all the operations of his master's house. Because everything Joseph did prospered, Potiphar saw that Joseph was blessed by God. Joseph was an honest and very handsome man. One day, Potiphar's wife, who liked Joseph very much, asked him to be her companion. Joseph, being honest and good, refused her because she was his master's wife. She asked him day after day, and he always refused. This insulted her, so she decided to make up a lie about Joseph and made her servants lie too. When her husband came home, she told him her lie. He believed her and locked Joseph in prison. However, God continued to bless Joseph and gave him favor in the eyes of the prison guard, who placed all of the prisoners under Joseph's control. Once again, all that Joseph did, God blessed. Some time later, Pharaoh's cook and butler made Pharaoh angry, so he threw them into the same prison which Joseph was in. One day they both looked sad, and Joseph asked them what was wrong. They said, "We have had dreams, but we do not have anyone to tell us what they mean." Joseph answered, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams, and I will help you." So the butler and the baker told him their dreams. When Joseph heard the dreams, God told Joseph what the dreams meant. Joseph then told the cook and butler. 3 days later, things happened just the way God had told Joseph they would. 2 years later, Pharaoh had a dream. He dreamed he was standing by the Nile River and saw 7 beautiful, fat, and healthy cows coming up from the river, eating the rushes. He saw 7 other cows come up behind them. The second cows were very thin and sickly, and the sickly cows came up to the healthy cows and ate them. The next night, Pharaoh had another dream. This time he saw 7 ears of corn, very beautiful and healthy on one stalk, and he saw 7 ears of corn that were withered and sick. Then the 7 sickly ears of corn swallowed up the 7 healthy ears of corn. Pharaoh was very troubled by his dreams, so he summoned all the magicians and wise men that were in Egypt. He told them his dreams, but even with all their wisdom and sciences, none of them could interpret the dreams. Then the butler spoke up. "When I was in prison, there was a man who interpreted my dreams and the baker's dream, and what he said came to pass. He was a Hebrew youth, a slave of the commander of the guard." So Pharaoh sent for Joseph. Joseph was brought from prison and given clean robes. Soon he stood before Pharaoh, who said, "I have had 2 dreams, but no one can interpret them for me. I have heard that you can interpret dreams. You will do this for me now." Joseph said, "May God return an answer of peace to Pharaoh." So Pharaoh told Joseph his dreams, and God told Joseph what they meant. Joseph replied to Pharaoh, "The dreams you had are all one dream. God has shown you what he has decided to do. The number 7 stands for years. The next 7 years will be filled with abundance and great prosperity, but they will be followed by 7 years of famine. The famine will desolate the land. You have had 2 dreams about the same thing to confirm what God has planned. You should find a man who is discerning and wise and put him over all of Egypt to take 1/5 of all Egypt's produce and put it in storage over the next 7 years, so that you will have enough food to last through the famine." Joseph's advice was good in Pharaoh's eyes. Pharaoh ordered his ministers to select some man with the Spirit of God in him for this duty. Soon they realized there was no such man. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I have seen that God is with you. You are an intelligent man. Therefore you shall be over my house. Whatever you command will be done. Only myself as king will be greater than you. I appoint you governor over all the land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took his ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. They clothed Joseph in robes of white and put a golden chain around his neck. Pharaoh stood and proclaimed, "I am Pharaoh of Egypt, but without Joseph's order no man will make a move in all of the country." Joseph was given the highest honor in the land, which was to ride in Pharaoh's 2nd chariot. Pharaoh named Joseph's office the High Treasureship and gave him Asenath, the daughter of one of the priests, for a wife. Joseph was 30 years old when he became governor of Egypt. Joseph went right to work surveying the land of Egypt. The earth produced extremely large amounts of food during the next 7 years. For every town he stored up great quantities of food from the fields around it. During this time, Joseph had 2 sons born to him by Asenath. The older he names Manasseh, which means forgotten, because God had caused Joseph to forget all his troubles and his father's house. The younger son he named Ephraim, which means fruitful, because God had caused Joseph to be fruitful in the land of his affliction. Then the 7 fruitful years were over, and the famine started. The famine was on all the land, but the country of Egypt was well taken care of. When the people ran out of food, Joseph opened the storehouses and sold them food. Soon other countries learned of the food and came to Joseph to buy some. When Israel heard of the food in Egypt, he sent his sons there to try to buy some. However, he kept Benjamin with him, since Benjamin was the only son left of his beloved Rachel. Because Joseph was the governor of Egypt, all outsiders had to go to him to be approved to buy food. When his brothers arrived, they also had to go before Joseph. They bowed to him, but did not recognize him. Joseph, however, did recognize them, but decided not to say anything. He pretended he could not speak Hebrew and used an interpreter to talk with them. Then Joseph remembered his dreams, in which their sheaves bowed down to his sheaf. He asked them where they were from. They answered, "We are from Canaan. We are here to buy food." Joseph said to them, "You are spies." The brothers answered, "No, we are 12 brothers, all the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. The youngest is at home with our father, and one is dead." But Joseph said, "You will have to prove you are not spies. One of you will go to bring your youngest brother here, and the rest will stay here in prison." Then Joseph imprisoned all of them for 3 days. After the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, "Do what I say and live. I will keep only one of you. The others will take food back to your starving families, but you must bring your youngest brother here to verify your statement." Still not knowing that Joseph was their brother and that he understood their language, the brothers said to each other in front of Joseph, "This is happening to us because of what we did to our brother Joseph long ago." Reuben told them, "Did I not tell you this would happen? Remember, I said, 'Let us not sin against the boy.' But you wouldn't listen. Now God seeks revenge for Joseph's blood." Joseph did understand them and had to leave the room to cry. Later he returned and selected Simeon to stay and put him in chains. Joseph had his brothers' wagons loaded with food and had his steward put the money his brothers had paid him into their loads. Then he released his brothers. Just before they left, one of them opened a sack to feed his donkey and saw his money in the bag. He ran to his brothers and cried, "He has put my money in my bag!" Their hearts stopped and they started shaking, they were so scared. They exclaimed, "What is God doing to us?" They went home to Canaan and told their father Israel all that had happened, saying, "The man who is master of Egypt accused us of being spies. We told him we are honest and are all brothers, but he is holding Simeon until we return with Benjamin to prove our story. He also put all our money back into our bags and sent us home with food." Israel declared, "I am saddened. I have lost Joseph. Now Simeon is gone, and you want to take away my Benjamin. All this is against me." Reuben spoke up, "I will place my 2 sons into your hands as a pledge, and take Benjamin, and I will promise to return with him and Simeon. If I do not, you may do what you want with my sons." Israel answered, "No, Benjamin will not be going to Egypt. Benjamin is the only son left of my beloved Rachel. Something might happen to him, and that would destroy me." The famine continued, and Israel and his family ran out of food again. Israel was going to send his sons back to Egypt, but Judah said to him, "The man said we would not see his face again unless we brought Benjamin with us." Israel asked him, "Why did you even tell him you had another brother?" Judah replied, "The man asked us if we had a father and a brother. We were trying to be honest with him. We did not know he was going to ask to see Benjamin." Then Judah exclaimed to Israel, "Send the boy with me, and I promise to return him to you alive. If I do not, you may do as you want with me and my children as well. If you had not hesitated, we would have been back by now." So Israel said, "If it must be, then do it. Take the man some presents, some balsam, honey, perfumes, myrrh, and nuts. Take double the money you need so you can give back the money from the first time. Take my Benjamin. May the Almighty God give you mercy in the man's eyes." When Joseph's brothers arrived in Egypt, He saw that Benjamin was with them and told his chief steward to invite them to his house for dinner. His brothers came to his house later, but they were afraid. They thought Joseph had invited them there to get his money back and to capture them to be his slaves. They spoke to the steward and said, "In the name of God, we came here to get food last time, and when we got home we found the money in our bags. We brought it back with us and brought more money for food and many gifts for the governor. We did not know the money was in our bags." The steward said, "Do not be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, caused that money to be put there." Then he brought Simeon to them. When Joseph arrived, his brothers gave him their presents and bowed down to him. Still using an interpreter, Joseph asked his brothers if they were well and if their father was still alive. They still did not recognize Joseph as the brother they had sold, and answered, "We are all well, and our father is still alive." Then Joseph saw Benjamin and asked if he was the younger brother they had spoken of. They said he was. Joseph said to Benjamin, "God show you mercy, my son." Before Joseph could go to dinner, he had to leave the room for a while because his love for his brother burned in him and he knew he was going to cry. After dinner, Joseph had his steward load up his brothers' wagons with as much food as possible and had him put their money in the loads again. Joseph also had his steward put Joseph's silver cup on the top of Benjamin's load, because Joseph had a plan to keep his brother with him. The next morning the brothers left, still not knowing who Joseph was. When they were not far from the city, Joseph ordered his steward to go after the brothers and to say to them, "Why have you returned evil for good? Where is my lord's silver cup?" So the steward did as Joseph said. The brothers were surprised. They said to the steward, "But you know we brought back the money from the first time. We did not steal. Go ahead and search our things. If you find the cup, you may kill the brother who has it, and we will all be your slaves." The steward agreed and went through their things and found the cup in Benjamin's load. The brothers were shocked, but returned to Joseph. When they arrived, they bowed to Joseph. He said to them, "What have you done here? Do not you know I watch all that is going on around me?" Judah replied, "What can we say to you? How can we clear ourselves? God knows our sin. We are your slaves, all of us, including the one who had the cup." Joseph said, "God forbid that I would do such a thing. Only Benjamin will remain here as my slave. The rest of you may return home." Judah said, "My lord, please allow me to speak. You asked if our father was alive, and we told you he is. But if we return home without Benjamin, our father will surely die of grief, because the boy is the only surviving son of his late beloved wife Rachel. Please let Benjamin go, and I will stay in his place. I cannot bear to see my father in such misery." Then Joseph could not control himself any longer. He sent all his guards out of the room, so he would be alone with his brothers. Joseph spoke in his native Hebrew tongue and said, "I am Joseph. Is my father really alive?" But his brothers could not answer him because they were so terrified. Joseph told them to come closer. He then said, "I really am Joseph, the brother you sold. I know at that time you hated me, but it was God's purpose that I am here at this place and at this time, to save many lives. For 2 years the famine has been on the land, and will continue for 5 more years. Go home to Canaan and tell my father I am alive, and bring him here to me. Do not delay. I will give you the land of Goshen, so that we will be close and I can know your children. Move down here so I can take care of you." Then they all cried and hugged and kissed each other. One of the servants overheard what Joseph had said and ran to report it to Pharaoh. He said, "Joseph's brothers are here." Pharaoh was very happy for Joseph and told him to have his family move to Egypt. He told them not to worry about moving all of their things because all the best in Egypt was theirs. So the sons of Israel returned home and told their father all that had happened. When they told Israel that Joseph was still alive and was the governor of Egypt, and when they gave Israel the gifts from Joseph, Israel's heart almost stopped. He was so surprised and happy. Israel's spirit was lifted, and he exclaimed, "It is enough. My son Joseph lives. I will go to see him before I die." Israel and all his family went to the well of the oath, where Israel gave offerings to God to thank him. Later that night, God came to Israel in a dream and said, I am the God of your father Isaac. Do not be afraid. Go down to Egypt because your family will become a great nation there. I will be with you and bless you. Joseph will be near you when you die." Israel arose the next morning and ordered all his family, his sons and their wives and children, to prepare to move to Egypt. They gathered all their animals and all their belongings and left. There were 70 people in all. Israel sent Judah ahead to ask Joseph to meet them in Goshen. Joseph took his chariot and went out to meet them. When Joseph and Israel saw each other, they hugged and cried on each other's shoulders for a long time. Then Israel said, "Now let me die. I have seen your face when I thought you were dead." It was a wonderfully happy reunion. Joseph settled his family in the city of Ramesses, in the land of Goshen, which was a lush green valley by the river Nile. The famine continued, so he took them food and whatever else they needed. Joseph took very good care of his family. Israel and his family acquired property and were very fruitful and multiplied greatly there. Thus was God's plan fulfilled.